Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live stream. This is the Library of American Comics and Eurocomics special live stream. My name is Kurtis. Dean, say hi to everybody. Dean.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing today?
How
are you up there, Kurtis?
Up here in Canada, we're doing pretty good. It's kind of an overcast day today, but things are moving right along. I heard you had tornado warnings in your area recently. Is that right?
Yeah, but they passed us by, luckily. Just a lot of Florida rain.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, some of the videos that Lorraine was posting is like, holy cow, that's wild weather. You don't get anything like that up here. We'll just keep on talking a little bit while we wait for some people to join our live stream. But it's good to do this. We've never done a live stream like this before. This is our first time.
This is definitely new for me. I like to sit at my desk, keep the door closed, as I have all the space for myself.
I think, though, that we will try and do...
Even years ago, going back like 25, 30 years at Eclipse, I had a sign on my office door that said, "Don't even think of coming in here," because what I enjoy more than anything else is working on comics. So I'd rather than talking about them is fun, of course.
Yep.
But I just love working, and so I'll work from the early morning till late at night.
That's awesome. I like doing that kind of stuff as well. And I've made comments to you in our conversations, like, you have no problems with all of this social distancing stuff.
Not at all. I'm used to it.
That's awesome. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss today. I got my book here, Barney Google for President, Library of American. Perfect. We can see. Yep, this is great. These books are fantastic. I've loved this format of the Library of American Comics Essentials ever since you started it several years ago. It's just such a neat way to read. It's unique. It's unlike any of the books that are out there now. It's very, very cool.
Well, I got the idea, Kurtis, when Bruce Canwell and I were at Boston University looking through all the Harold Gray files. They've got most of his original art, and they had all Gray's, personal files, letters, correspondence, as well as all of his proof books. And what he did was he would get the, say a year's worth of strips, something like this. This is a year's worth of Barney Google from 1937, but Harold Gray would get the loose strips from the Tribune Syndicate, and he would take it to a bindery and have them bound. So basically, this format replicates the bound volumes that Harold Gray made of his Little Orphan Annie strips. Once I saw them, it just clicked.
Yeah,
that's a perfect format because you're getting one page, one daily per. Hello. Can anyone name this tune?
Nope.
It's the theme song to Monsieur Hulot's Holiday or Jacques Tati.
Oh, nice.
Okay, that's obscure. Anybody knows who Jacques Tati is? They can send us a little note. Anyway, so this to me is the ideal format for reading strips. As much as I love having the regular collections with 3 dailies per page and then a Sunday page, that's not the way we saw it when you were in the newspaper, reading it originally in the newspaper. But we never can. We can't go back in time and do that. We can't pretend. Well, actually, we can pretend by that we have a newspaper every day by just reading one page of the strip. Then we turn the page and read the next. And I've spoken to people who've done it. They just read one daily per day, and a year later they're done. Well, we want them to read faster than that because then we want them to buy more books.
You're right.
But the Harold Gray proof books is really the model that I used for this.
What I really like about this format is that is specifically because you literally can't see several days ahead of you. When you have the 6 strips all at once, your eye kind of glosses over the whole 2-page spread before you kind of zero in on the first strip and read them. And that could potentially give away plots.
Sure. We train ourselves to do things like that. I just reread The Lord of the Rings just for the heck of it, like 2 weeks ago. And I didn't want to, I deliberately did not look at the bottom part of the page because I don't want to see what's happening next. So I'm just trying to keep myself focused on that. So we do that with a 3-up, but it's easier even still at the LOAC Essentials format because there is only one strip per page.
Yeah. For sure. And we've done, what volume is this now?
14.
14 of these LOAC Essentials, and I love the variety also. You've chosen everything from action adventure strips to comedy to like everything under the sun. It's like such a great variety in these. How do you go about choosing which books you want to have as part of the Library of American Comics Essentials?
Well, most of them really are essential. If you're gonna have a small library of comics, having a George Herriman Crazy Cat volume, it definitely needs to be there. The Barney Google has to be there. The Bungle family, not as well known, but to me it's an essential strip. And the Baron Bean, Polly and her pals. I mean, they're all almost gimmies. It's like it's not hard to figure them out. It's just a question of ones that we think we can get the material for, and also that we make sure that there's enough interest in it to sell enough copies to make it worthwhile.
And so
a big issue is finding the material.
Of course.
And that's the problem we're always having in every single series, is to locate strips. In many cases, LOAC books are represent the only known collected copy of certain strips.
That's amazing.
And that's the great joy of finding them. When you find that last strip and fill in that last hole, I mean, every collector can relate to that.
So when did the idea for Barney Google come into your mind?
Well, from the beginning, when Bruce and I made a list of strips, Barney Google was definitely on it. But we just kept putting it back because we didn't have the strips in hand. And we had other strips in hand that we wanted to go with. And Brian Walker is, who wrote the 75th anniversary book on Barney Google. Brian's been nudging me to do a Barney Google. He goes, "Come on, push it up on the list, push it up on the list." And we finally did. We found time to do it. And I found a stash of Barney Googles. I'm going to try to turn my camera around, so bear with me. Do you see the back, Kurtis?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, here's a box. Here's a plug for Diamond, our good friends at Diamond Comics. We love Steve Jeppe. Hi, Steve. And they're a nice, solid box. But what I've got in here is 1926 January to July Barney Google. Here's another one. This is July through December. I found through a dealer a giant box of what I call a box of Barney. Here's the complete 1940 strips, the complete 1928 strips, and on and on and on. Let me flip the camera back. So in order to choose a year's worth of strips, because the LOAC Essentials are, we try to do a 1 year of continuity, but you can't always do it. Because say in a strip like Barney Google that might have 3-month storylines, finding 4 in a row that are absolutely fantastic may be a little challenging. So I picked ones from 1926, 27, and 28. And as Brian Walker pointed out, there's been enough Barney Google reprints of the early 20s with Barney and Sparkplug. So he wanted to do something from later in the 20s. So in order to choose it, you've got to read them. So that getting this big box of Barneys gave me, these go back from 1921 up to 1940. So I didn't read all those 20 years because I wanted to do something from the 20s. But I did read 15 years worth of Barney Google and selected what I thought were the best strips.
Yeah, these 4 stories are just excellent. Now, how did you come up with these 4? And some of them, I can understand why you did the last two, because the Billy Goat story and the President story, they really go hand in hand. Like, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, it's all part of the same story.
Yeah.
I started off saying, okay, Barney Google for president that's the beginning point. So if I figured out how many pages that and how many days that would take, and then started looking through the other strips. I'm going to look at my notes here. There were a lot that we just couldn't even fit in. In the 1920s, one of the fads was flagpole sitting. So there's a sequence with Barney Google sitting on a flagpole. It's a great story, but it only lasted like about 3 weeks, and I just couldn't fit it in the book. But there's another one, because there was a big boom in Florida real estate speculation in the 1920s too. A lot of people just selling swampland to people from up north.
Yeah.
So there's a thing called Google Gables, in which the different towns compete with each other to try to get Barney and Sparkplug to stage a race in their town to help them sell real estate. And
right.
There's just so many funny stories. He gets arrested. He's wanted dead or alive. He has to escape. But the president storyline, running for president and the whole secret society, I think is the best story from the mid to late 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good.
That said, since Sparkplug doesn't really appear in those stories, I wanted to get two Sparkplug stories. So the $1 Million Cross-Country Marathon leads directly into the English Channel, swimming in the English Channel.
Yeah, they fit together really nice. Yeah, it's a good representation of this era. And what I like is in the book here, you've included one. I haven't read those books on the early stuff, on the early Barney Google, but you included the one strip. Where did it go? I think it's before the introduction, from 1919. That showed the very, one of the very early strips, and it just looks so different compared to what. Then we flip over to see the other stuff from 1928.
Well, Kurtis, it's interesting because as an archivist, we want to see everything we printed. I mean, we want to see every single the strip from the beginning to end. But not every strip. In fact, most cartoonists aren't at their best at the very beginning of a strip.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the early Barney Googles. They're okay, but it gets better and it gets better, and then he really hits his stride. By the early to mid 20s. But I remember when Bill Blackbeard was editing the Hyperion line back in the 70s, he pretty much picked the beginning strips, which is great from an archivist point of view, but then they weren't necessarily always the best.
Yeah, it's true.
So when we did a Bringing Up Father, we could have gone back to the beginning when it was pretty stiff and interesting, but it wasn't as interesting as it was by the time we got into the heyday of the 1930s and 40s.
And then on the flip side of that, you do have some collections like Blondie that do start at the beginning, and your intention was to just bring just those early years.
Yeah, and it shows. It's also interesting from a historian point of view and somebody who loves comics, is to look at Chick Young. It really wasn't that good. He was floundering. He had a good concept, but he didn't know where to go with it. And after a year, the strip really was losing papers. After a big promotion, it was floundering. And then he hit on the whole wedding sequence and the hunger strike, and then it just basically took off and then became the Blondie that we know it is today. But it's interesting to see a great cartoonist like Chick Young finding his path.
Yeah.
So it's looking at the failure of some of the strips is instructive to why his successes are so good.
I just want to give a little shout out. John Rose is in the audience today. He says, Bodacious, thanks for doing this scene.
John.
And for those of you who don't know, John Rose is the current cartoonist on Barney Google and Snuffy Smith. So it's great to have John, and he actually did the foreword in this book. So yeah, great to have you listening in. If any of you have any questions relating to the essentials or relating to Barney Google, we don't want to open the floodgates up to questions about everything, but we will answer some questions. If you have them, you can leave them in the comments on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching, and we'll see them here in our chat window here. So there is one question from Josh. He says, "Are there any more plans for Crazy Cat dailies?" That was one of the LOAC Essentials books that you did.
Yes, there might be. It really depends on Fantagraphics, because they've been publishing Crazy Sundays for so long. They've announced several times that we're going to do the dailies, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But we're all friends. I mean, there's a collegiality between amongst the publishers.
Yeah.
So we'll beg off if they tell us they're not going to do a complete Crazy dailies, then we'll jump in and do some others. But they've got first dibs.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, we could be cutthroats, but we're not. So anyway, that 1 year that we did choose is I went to Ohio State University, Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum, and went through all of Bill Blackbeard's clip strips. And there were some other years that were really good, but they weren't printed well. This was the year we chose, which I think is 1934. It was the best combination of story, gags, and quality of print.
Right. Did you have any issues with the quality of the Barney Google strips that you got?
No, I just Dale Crane, our good friend who's passed away recently, and I spent a considerable amount of time restoring the strips, but they weren't that bad to begin with. They needed to be cleaned up, the blacks filled in, but no, the quality was good because the strips were. Let me see if you can see how. I mean, the strips are big.
Yeah.
I mean, they're actually. Some reviewers say that we reprint the strips in the books exactly at actual size, and it is actual size for some newspapers that ran a 5-column, but other newspapers ran a 6-column, which is about. I guess it's really this is wide as my head.
Whoops! Uh-oh.
You lost me.
Sorry, there you're back. I pushed the wrong button there.
Yeah, so to get a 6-column, which is the full width of a newspaper, and reduce it down, it looks clean.
Some of these strips, especially the first story, the race across the country, they look so incredibly clean. Like all of the lines, the zipatone, like all of it looks incredibly good. And some of the later ones.
I'd like to say that I did those, but I can't because Dale did the first 2 storylines, and I did the second 2.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the good stuff was from Dale Crane, and the so-so stuff is my work.
I do also want to give out a little shout out to this other book that we've done a couple of years ago, or is it a couple of years ago already? The Goat Getters. In the last chapter of this book, Eddie Campbell does talk a little bit about Barney Google, because Barney Google started in the sports section. It was because he was a sports cartoonist first. He did a lot of the cartooning surrounding boxing and such, and then when he started Barney Google, it was in fact still relating to sports. He started just really like Barney Google is a character that I was always interested in prize fighting and such, watching the matches, and it appeared in the sports page before moving into elsewhere in the paper.
And if readers want to get a really good history of the strip, Brian Walker's 75th anniversary book is just fantastic. And if you want to see what's going on now, John Rose is he's a hero. He's picked up the mantle, and it's just as good as it ever was, and maybe even better in some respects.
We have a couple.
The other thing is, Brian and I were trying to figure out what, when we were first talking about which sequence to run. It came down to the 20s or the introduction of Snuffy Smith, which is essential to the history of comics.
Yeah.
And so we have plans to do a second Barney / Snuffy Smith volume. And I don't have a date yet, but we're definitely going to be doing that because the strip as Snuffy Smith obviously continues to this day.
Yeah. And so what year did Snuffy Sniff come in?
1930. John might yell at me. I think it's 1934.
34. So that'll be 10 years later. That'll be another great cross section of his of a different era.
I'm sure I have it in this box of Barneys here. It's in one of these stacks. See, and that's a case where we'll have to, use a continuity.
Yeah. There's just some great cartooning in these books. Just wonderful stuff. I was going to have a second camera so that I wouldn't have to hold it up to my other camera, but I couldn't get that figured out quite well. What is out of these 4 stories, which one is your favorite?
I'd say the Billy Goat story.
Oh yeah,
because
it's so great.
The 20s were the height of all these different secret societies and all the weird handshakes and all that kind of stuff. And he really goes to town, and it's a great parody of them all.
John says yes, 1934.
Thank you, John.
Snuffy Smith. Yep.
have an expert in the audience.
That story is great. I mean, being the age that I am, I'm not, and also in Canada, I don't think that we have the same sort of secret societies and stuff going on. Every so often I'll see a building that says Oddfellows Hall on it or whatever, but it's not part of our culture. And I really only know it from the Flintstones with the Loyal Order of the Water Buffalo.
which in turn is a parody of the Honeymooners.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And I was watching an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show last week, and he gets messed up in this hotel that has a convention of the Order of Seals, and that was a funny episode. And so I'm just like inundated all of a sudden with these different society stories that I don't really know anything about the culture. But what's great about this one is there's a great mystery behind it as well, with the guy with the purple hood.
Yes.
It just goes in so many different directions. And then when you get into when you read the introduction by Brian Walker, he's talking about how that story really influenced a lot of societies at the time. Like, people were joining up into societies because they were reading these Barney Google comics and realizing that it kind of looked like a lot of fun and they wanted to be a part of it. So it's amazing the influence that these comic strips had at the time. And I think he got a lot of fan mail. And when you get into the President story, I'll see if I can find an example. There are these strips in the panels where he just puts all of these random people with people's names. And
they're not. I don't think they're random, Kurtis. I mean,
I don't think they're random either.
I can tell you, to do the restoration of that lettering almost made me blind, because there's so many names and there's so little. I mean, some of them are friends of his or people he knew. There are band leaders, there are songwriters, authors, but I think he also included a lot of local people from specific towns who were influential in their town, and it was just a promotion, just like when Barney would go across the country with Sparkplug. It was a way of boosting circulation in all those different every town that he passed. So if they go to Omaha, Nebraska, they were hoping to support the local newspaper and help with the circulation.
Wow, there are just so many names throughout pretty much the last half of the President's story. It's like every strip has 7 or 8 names in it. Yeah, I figured it was probably people who were like writing in part of their own societies back in their towns or something. But yeah, I didn't recognize any of the names. I'd have to be a much better historian of the era to figure that out.
You're not as old as I am, Kurtis.
So what are the challenges of producing a book in this shape? Because it's really, really long and narrow. Like the pages have to be done in a certain way. Use a certain paper stock as well.
Well, yeah, I chose a paper stock that was, it's a book quality newsprint. It's not a magazine crappy old comics quality newsprint. It's a good quality newsprint. But again, I wanted that to feel that, I want to get the reader to feel that you're holding a stack of clip strips.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I wanted something with a lot of grit and tooth to the paper, so it felt like a newspaper.
Wow, yeah, you really do get that kind of feeling there.
The challenge is finding the strips. I mean, that's always number one.
Yeah,
is finding a good quality strips.
And that's one of the challenges you're facing with Superman right now, right?
Actually, let me see. Hold on, Kurtis. Talk to people for me.
Okay, so let's see if we have any questions here. Puy McCleary says, perhaps a weird question. Is there any reference to the Spanish flu in comics of that era, say 1918, 1920? That's definitely a topical question now that we're in this pandemic right now. I've seen people posting pictures from Crazy Cat strips that directly reference the Spanish flu, but I don't think that we have any in any of our books that directly reference the Spanish flu. I was trying to look in that in Baron Bean, because that's exactly the years of Baron Bean, and I couldn't find any reference to Spanish flu in there.
Okay, well, speaking of Superman,
okay,
this is, can you see this?
Yep. Here, hold on a second. I'm going to solo your screen. There.
This is a British cartoon magazine, a newspaper, basically, and it has all different strips in it, but also has Superman by Kurt Swan from the 1950s.
Whoa! Did you just recently find those?
Our good friend Sid Friedferdig is always looking for strips, and he's just located a stack of these, so that each issue of this contains one page of Superman, which is about 4 or 5 days of dailies. So, and then he's got a big stack of them.
That's fantastic.
So basically, to get the complete Superman, we're literally having to go around the world
wow.
and collect things from Brazil, from the UK. It's always a challenge, but it's always rewarding.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Well, that's good to know. Okay, let's see. We have a couple of questions here. Are there any strips from the 20s or 30s that you haven't done yet that you would like to do? Probably a bunch of them.
It's a lot. Well, I like to do more Bungle families, but we've already done one of them. I'll have to think about that.
Ryan Kirk says, we have 14 essentials. Any clues to what the number 15 might be? Do you want to give a hint?
If I can find them, I would love to do a Rex Morgan. I know Rex Morgan, but Rex Morgan in 1950, 51, 52, there were stories. The Teenage Dope Slaves comic book from Harvey, that's a big Overstreet book. That is a reprint of the Rex Morgan storyline about drug addiction. And then, but in the same sequence, there's a story about physician-assisted suicide. I mean, it's really, really amazing adult, serious issues being tackled in the strip in 1951. The problem is the Sundays and the daily strips are connected. So trying to find the Sundays to run with the dailies is, I haven't been able to find them, anything other than microfilm quality. But that's one that I would love to do.
Would you be able to do that in Essentials with the Sundays?
I think we'd have to break the Sundays up, into strips, into maybe 3 pages. I'm not sure yet. We're thinking about it.
Okay, there we go. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about Billy DeBeck? When I was reading through this introduction by Brian Walker, I was surprised to know when he was like, we really have no information about Billy DeBeck. He seemed like a very private person. He mentions in the introduction that he kept no diaries or anything like that. Like there's no real record of him as a person. It's so strange.
And Brian's done more research than anyone, so if anyone's going to find it, he would have.
Yeah, but you can kind of see, like one of the things that Brian also says is that Barney Google is Billy DeBeck. Like if you want to know more about him, then read the comic, and you get to know you get to know about his politics. You get to know about his interests and like all of the sports stuff, and like the humor I think betrays a lot of who he is, because he's got such a quirky sense of humor as well.
It'd be interesting to go through all the storylines and take elements and put them together and create a false biography.
Yeah, that would be funny. Well, let's see. Does anybody else have any questions? We're willing to take some questions here. If you want to add them to in the comment section on Facebook or YouTube, we will see them and we can answer your questions there. I think that what's the next book that's on the schedule to be published, Dean? Have the
It's For Better or For Worse.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think For Better or For Worse #5.
Okay. Wow.
Sorry, Dick Tracy 28 is printed, and we should be getting it any day.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, I would have, because there's a little bit of a wait between the next For Better or For Worse, I think. So that's good. That one, was there a delay because of the coronavirus shutdowns?
Some things are delayed because of printing in Asia. Yes. Coming this week is the last Corto Maltese story.
Nice. That'll be really good too.
That's
wow.
Shipping this week.
Shipping to stores this week?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I haven't seen my copy come through. Maybe the border shutdown is not letting it through.
I haven't seen mine yet either. They just asked me for the mailing list today.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So it'll probably be a week.
Perfect. Wow. So this volume of Dick Tracy, is there anything you want to tell people about that?
Well, it's this penultimate volume of Chester Gould's works, and we got one more, and then when that's done in December, we'll have 29 volumes of every Chester Gould strip. I mean, I didn't even know if it was possible that it would happen, but it'll be done by the end of the year.
It's quite a remarkable feat.
For the first time ever.
Yeah. I mean, you put that up there with like the Peanuts collection that Fantagraphics did. It's like there are no other series that that make it to the end like that. Yeah. It's amazing. Wow, and I know a lot of the questions. There are two big questions about plans for Dick Tracy after this. One is always, are you going to go back to the original 6 and print the bigger versions of them to match the other sets?
I would love to, because IDW produced the first 6 in-house at the smaller Peanut size. I can make a joke about that, but and then I redesigned the series in volume 7. I would love to go back and do the first 6, and we keep talking about it, and hopefully a time will come when it'll happen. And the other question is, will we continue with the strips after Chester Gould?
That's right.
You know, because you can't keep a good man down. Even though Chester Gould was retired at the end of '77, he did consult with Max Allan Collins for the next 4 years. So there's a possibility, we're looking into it, of continuing with those strips, at least those to begin with.
That'll be really great. I think that'll. I think people will be really happy to hear that, because. And
I remember reading I read Max's strips when they were new, and they're fantastic. I mean, it really is. He captures the characters and does a great job.
I've loved all of the essays that he's been doing in all of these volumes. Just some great insights there. So it'll be great to see, because I don't think I've ever read any of Max's actual Dick Tracy strips. So it'll be cool to see that in action there.
Well, then in the 80s, right after that, is when Leonard Starr took over Annie. And both
Right.
the two strips, I mean, were really great again. It's really nice.
Okay. Well, we've been at this for over half an hour, and I think that that's probably good enough for our live stream episode today. Unless you have any other stuff you want to bring up,
Well,
Dean.
this is a good learning lesson, but we'll get the kinks out and the bugs out, and have a few jokes ready for next time.
Yeah, we're going to try and do these on a regular basis. We'll bring in some special guests from time to time as well to join us on the streams, and yeah, we'll be able to. So come with your questions prepared, and we will be able to talk. We love interacting with you guys and answering some questions and talking more about comics. But we do encourage everybody, if you haven't already, to check out Barney Google for President. This is a great book, like from start to finish. If you love classic, funny cartoons with a great mix of adventure and mystery and everything, it's kind of a catch-all for all of that. It's really great.
Yeah, he was such a master of getting you to read the next day. But, in our case, to turn the next page. But originally to read the next day's paper. He really was great at it.
Okay, well, I think we should sign off here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining our live stream. And we'll see you next time. See you later, everybody.